Let's make a paper craft for Memorial Day. Hi everyone and welcome back to my craft room. My name is Kelsey. I also call myself Dinosaur Mama. And today we are working on this 3D Memorial Day project. Linked below, you'll find the blog post for the free SVG file and the written instructions, and you can go through my free SVG library while you're over there to find other projects. Let's get started in Cricut Design Space. This project is super easy to set up in Cricut Design Space because you can just upload it and it's already maxed out for a 12 by 12 piece of paper. So if you're using a smaller sheet of paper, then obviously you should size down just a little bit, but you can just literally send this over to your Cricut and go. I do include this little gold plaque, so if you want to utilize this and add text to it, you'll ungroup everything, add your text, whether you use heat transfer vinyl, paper, whatever you want to do. If you want to emboss it on there, it's totally up to you, but it is ready to go. Jumping right into it, the easiest thing to do after you have everything cut out from your paper is to start with your flag. And to make my life a little bit easier, I actually kept my flag, the red stripes, on my Cricut mat. And I did this so I could just add the glue onto one side. So I'm only doing this for one part of the flag. And then I'm going to lay my white piece over it. And then that way I know it's lined up perfectly on one side. And then I can use that as a guide for the other side. Because if you lift it off your table enough and you have decent lighting, you can actually see where the lines are to line up the other side. So that's what I did for the first set of red stripes. So after I glued everything, I laid down my white piece, made sure it was lining up really evenly, and then I peeled it back from the mat. So just be patient when you're doing this. Like you'll see I'm pulling it, and then I go and I get a little spatula to kind of like hold everything down. But this really is helpful because everything's in the right place. So I suggest doing this. I mean, it might not be for everybody, but it worked for me. So that is how I placed my first set of my red stripes onto my white backing. Then I went ahead and just finished this side with the blue stars piece on it. And again, I'm just using my craft glue to do this and glue it down. There's really nothing special to building this flag, honestly, because it's just building the SVG file. This is actually, at the end of all of it, it's a relatively easy project to put together. And then, like I said, for my other side that I have going, I used the red stripes. Like you can kind of see it. I could see them through the paper. So I was using that as a guide and where to place the other side's strips. And it was very helpful to have that there because I didn't have to like worry about placement, if it was in the right spot, if the lines were even, because I knew from the other side that they were in the right spot. So I went ahead and did that with my craft glue as well. And then I glued down my blue stars just like I did on the other side. And that's truly how you build your flag. Again, it's nothing special. It's just placing all the pieces in the right spots to build your American flag. So let's start building our box. I'm folding in on all of my perforation lines. These fold really easily, and I'm still enjoying putting my own perforation lines on my designs. I think it's super helpful, and I would love to know your feedback on if you like having the perforation lines or if you would prefer to have the option for score lines. I've been just focusing on the perforation lines. That way everyone can make it if they don't have the scoring tool. So I am folding in, and then all those flaps on the sides are going to go on the inside of your box as usual. When we're creating our 3D projects, we want our flaps on the inside for a clean seam look on the outside. So I am just using my craft glue for this. You can use hot glue if you prefer. And I did use 65-pound cardstock for my base for the box, and I kind of wish that I would have gone with 80 or even higher, just so that it was a little more solid and stable. Because 65 is good, but it's not obviously the best quality. Like it's better than a printer paper, but I think it should be just a little bit thicker. In so many words. And so I am gluing all of those sides down, and this glue dries quickly. And of course I will link all of the materials and tools that you need below for this project. And then you have your box, you have your two slits for the man to stand, your soldier to stand, and your little hole for your flagpole. And then this is where you can add on your little plaque. I'm reusing a plaque, so I didn't have to waste more paper. So don't judge me on that. But I did cut it out for this project, so it was part of my testing phase. But you just glue that right on the front, and of course you would, if you need to assemble like your letters on it, do that before you do this, because you don't want to have to be trying to assemble letters onto a 3D surface. And there is your base. So we grab our long gray strip or whatever color you cut this out in. Again, I never like to really give direct instructions on colors because I want to leave that creatively up to you. And I'm trying to roll this as tight as I can. I used 85-pound cardstock for this, and I do suggest using a thicker cardstock. However, you can also use a straw. If you have a longer straw, you can use really anything that's rounded. I am doing my best to roll this up and get it as round as possible. It ended up having like a slight curve to it and being more oval, which is totally fine. But I am doing my best to get this as small as possible. I made the hole in the box pretty small, so just be prepared. It's going to expand. Mine ripped, but that's not a bad thing because you want it to be tight in there. So it's not, you don't want the hole to be too big and then it's wobbling everywhere. You want it to be like as tight as possible. Then I'm just going back in with my craft glue. Again, you can use hot glue for this if you prefer. It'll set a little bit faster, and I'm still like trying to make it as tight as possible and getting that glue in there. It's going to have a seam. Again, you can use a straw if you prefer to do that, or you could use a dowel if you prefer. I just have paper because this is a paper project, and so I wanted to use all paper. And see, I'm even flattening it out just to get it like as tightly closed as possible. So just use your fingers, finesse it down as small as you can. It does not have to fit into that hole. I see if you look up at the top, my hole has expanded to be a little bit bigger to shove this into. And so I'm gluing it as much as I can, and now I'm going to put it inside of that. I did this, you'll see in a second. I put the flag in next and then put it in. I suggest putting the pole in and then putting the flag on. And the only reason I say that is because you have to go from the top now rather than the bottom. But I guess so it doesn't really matter. Both ways work. So whichever way you want to do, I did my flag first. I just always like to give other suggestions. And I started with my craft glue here and I switched over to my hot glue. And I did put that little tag that's on the flag. There's like a little white part that sticks out. I put that into the seam as much as I could so that it's hidden. So like the flag actually looks like it's attached to the pole. So there is our flag on the pole. So again, you can build this where you put the pole into the base and then add the flag, or you can add the flag and then put it into the base. Either way works. So your little army man has these two tabs at the bottom, and I ended up taking my flagpole out to do this just so it didn't rip my box while I was assembling the rest of it. And you're going to have these two little slits, and you're just going to stick those two rectangles into those slits. They fit perfectly, like really nice and tight in there. So you want to add those in, and this is how he's going to stand. Make sure that he's, not falling over, and you don't have to worry about like getting a very thin line of glue at the bottom. So we're going to stick him in, and then you'll turn your box over and you're going to fold those flaps in opposite directions. So see, I'll put a little hot glue on the right side and the little hot glue on the left side, and then I place them down those tabs. And so that way he is like glued to the box, but you don't see those tabs. They're underneath. So that is how I started with that. And then we are going to add back in our flag. So the way I did it was, you definitely need weights for this project. So magnets, rocks, a piece like a wood block. I glued my army man's hand, so you'll see right here with hot glue, to the flagpole before I added my weights. My weights add height to my flag. So just keep that in mind when you're doing it. You can always trim your flag bottom down, which I probably should have done, and I just thought of that while I was doing this. However, you can also put the weights on first, then glue his hand to the flag. And so see here, if you don't have the weights on it, it just kind of falls over. So you're going to add weights to the bottom. And for my weights, I'm just using magnets that I got at the Dollar Tree. They also sell those like rocks that you put in the bottom of aquariums, or like vases. I think most people know what I'm talking about, that you can use. But you just want them to be heavy enough and glued down to the bottom of the flag to hold everything down rather than the flag falling over. And if you still feel like it's a little wobbly, which as you see, it's standing here, so it's not really wobbly, but you just want a little bit more stability, this is not included in the SVG. I just grabbed a strip of paper that's the same color as my base and a little bit longer than the width. And I'm just going to glue that. So like one side, I'm going to glue the tab on, fold it. I'm going to glue it to those magnets I just attached. And then I'm going to glue it to the other side. So you can't even see this strip. That's why I'm saying I just cut this out of a piece of paper and it's not included in the SVG file. It's just if you feel like it's not stable after you added the weight. So I just wanted to add a little bit more. You really don't have to do this. As you saw, it was standing by itself. But, you know, just in case you feel like it needs more stability, you can also add weights like to the other side, like to counterweight it. But yeah, you just add in this little strip. Again, it's just a piece of paper. You don't even have to use the same color if you don't want to. And I just glued that down on both sides so that it was not visible. And that is how you assemble this 3D project. Thank you for joining me as we made this 3D project for Memorial Day. If you enjoyed this project, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up. And if you want to, you can subscribe for future Cricut craft projects. Stay crafty!